remember one of the first videos I did was of the new DS3. We drove it back in February and then we launched our YouTube stuff in March, and DS decided that a premium place to drive their new premium car would be central London. So we went up to central London, we spent 2 days there driving it, and then we came back again. Now at the launch we didn't really have that much time to drive the cars. We only tried one car, one engine, so this is a chance for me to spend a bit more time in the car, get to know it a bit better, and try a different engine. So DS used to be part of Citroen. It used to be the Citroen DS3, but then Citroen decided that the best thing to do for their brand was to separate DS from Citroen, to make DS into its own little luxury sub-brand, in the same way that Lexus is the luxury sub-brand of Toyota. Now the DS3 was like a hit. I remember the adverts, I remember people going crazy for it because it was a really funky looking car that was actually really nice inside and drove really well as well. The DS3 Racing was a beast. But then at the beginning of the year they redesigned the DS3, and it was the first car that was its own DS3. It wasn't called a Citroen anymore, didn't have any of the Citroen design bits on it. Everything was changed to give it this new identity, and so the face was changed, the interior was changed. It's still recognisable, but the details are all different. So this is a 3-cylinder car. The car I drove on the launch was a 4-cylinder car with basically the same engine that is now making its way into the performance version, whereas this is a 3-cylinder, so it's a 1.2 litre 3-cylinder with a turbocharger. This has got 130 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 8.9 seconds. That's pretty respectable, I have to say, for a small car with a 3-cylinder. So what's the engine like? I've always liked 3-cylinder engines. I don't hide it, I just really like the way they sound because they always remind me of a bumblebee. Not that bumblebees are nice, I get terrified by bumblebees, but the engines themselves, I quite like the sound of them. There's so much torque from the turbocharger that when you get to about 2000 RPM, it just kind of surges forward. Peak power's at 5,500 RPM and the red line's just over 6,000, but to be honest, it starts to feel like it's struggling just under 5,000, so keep it between 2.5 and 5 and you're all good. The gearbox itself is okay. It's a 6-speed manual gearbox. You can get them in automatics as well, but this 6-speed manual is quite a nice little gearbox. It's quite a short throw and it's reasonably nice to use. The clutch, on the other hand, is a bit more tricky to use. You don't really know what the clutch is doing. It's quite soft and spongy, and the bite point is really high on the pedal, so it takes a bit of getting used to. You've got to pay attention to learn where the bite is, because if you just get in it and you think, I'll be able to feel it really easily, you won't. For a luxury car, it rides reasonably harshly, I think, particularly at lower speeds. It's quite bumpy, quite jiggly. Once you get up and get moving and get a bit faster, it smooths out quite a lot actually. I'm surprised how different it is. You might be able to feel it now because we're driving a bit slower. It's really bouncy. But then once you get up to higher speeds, it kind of smooths out and becomes a lot more comfortable. So on motorways, I've done quite a lot of motorway driving in this now, it's really comfortable. The steering, like the suspension, is better at high speed than it is at low speed. It's not bad at low speed, but it feels a little bit unnatural, whereas the faster you go, the more communicative it feels, the more control you feel you've got over the car, and you feel like you're getting more information from the front tyres. So how does the new DS3 drive? It's got Michelin Pilot Sport 3s on it, so it has tons of grip. And as well, the chassis is really well sorted. So far, on the road, there's never been a time when I felt any understeer in the car. I'm sure you could if you tried to put your foot down in the middle of a corner. I'm sure it would start to scrub a little bit. But for the most part, it just grips and goes, and it's really, really fun actually. How a car looks is always quite subjective, I think, because what's good for some people looks really, really naff for others. So I think the DS looks pretty smart. I don't know about the red paint and the white roof, just because I think red doesn't always age very well. But the actual design, and seeing it in a few different colours, I think it looks really, really nice. And inside, if you're used to a normal Citroen or a normal Peugeot, because they're all in the same family, this feels premium, and that's exactly how it should feel. That's what a DS is. It's supposed to be the luxury brand. And inside you've got this lovely dash, you've got a nice sat-nav, the buttons are really simple. It's simple on the centre console. And what I like as well, steering wheel. Most cars nowadays, they are smothered in buttons. DS, simple. You've got a leather steering wheel, and there are no buttons on it at all. There are some buttons on a few things behind, but other than that, simple, nice to look at. It's just a nice place to be. The final word has to be price, I think. As you'd expect, this isn't Citroen price, not really, because they want it to be the more premium car, so it has got a more premium price. As tested, this car with a 3-cylinder engine you can get for £19,090 with a couple of options on it that this has got, like reversing camera and these really nice black leather seats. This car is £20,000. I think that will be a struggle for a lot of people. Some people will buy into it the same way that people buy into the Fiat 500. They like it, they like the way it looks, they like the way it drives, and they'll just buy it regardless of the price, because this, like the Fiat, is actually quite expensive for what it is. But others, they'll look at it and they'll think, it's still just a Citroen. It's still just something that's in the same family as a Peugeot or a standard Citroen. So why should I be paying £20,000 for what is effectively a small 3-cylinder 1.2 litre hatchback? So I think if you're taken by it, you'll want it. I think for some others though, they'll look at it and they'll see the price and they'll think it's a bit too steep. Even though it is great, and even though it is really nice inside and it's really nice to drive, I still think perhaps the price, until you get the idea that this isn't a standard Citroen, the price might just be a bit too much for some people to swallow.